Welcome to Journey Home to Self. This is a place for us to explore the milestones, the roadblocks, the pit stops, and the breathtaking sights on the most important journey of our lives, the journey of coming back home to you. My hope is that through the stories, insights, knowledge, and wisdom we share here, you get inspired and activated to widely fall in love with choosing yourself every single moment. I'm your host, Deepshikha, and I am truly so excited and honored that you are here. Let's dive in and journey home to self together. Hi friends, welcome to Journey Home to Self. I am so excited you're tuning in for this special episode. Lao Tzu, the famous philosopher, said, "Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power." And I completely believe that you cannot journey yourself to home. You cannot come back home. You cannot master that path unless you know yourself. And that's where true power lies. And on this episode, we're going to talk about this really useful tool that you can use to know yourself even better. It's called human design. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing about it, don't worry, we've got your back. This entire episode is going to be about. And if you've heard about it, then get excited because you all know how excited I get whenever I'm talking about human design. If you don't know what your human design type is, there is a link in the show notes where you can grab your free chart. Now, you're going to need a few things for it. You're going to need your name, of course. You're going to need your date of birth, your place of birth, and time of birth. Now, don't worry what your chart looks like. It's going to have lots of shapes, lots of lines, lots of colors. Do not worry about that. The only thing that you need to know right now is your human design type. You can either be a generator, a manifesting generator, a manifester, that's who I am, a projector, or a reflector. Once you have that, join us in this discussion because my guest today and I are going to talk about human design and how you can use it to know yourself even better. And when you know yourself, you can journey home to self. I know when I had my first human design reading, I had tears in my eyes because I felt so understood. I was like, finally, there is something out there that's telling me who I am exactly as a person. And the more and more I learn about human design and I use it in my life to make decisions, to live my life, to run my business, to parent, I come back home to my true sense of self. And I'm just a better person, to be honest. And I find life easier, less resistance, more joy, more peace. So let's welcome our guest today. She is not only a human design and sales coach, but also my best friend. Adina Kroll is a human design and sales coach, author, and speaker for six-figure entrepreneurs and their teams. She spent over 11 years learning the rules of sales and marketing to show you how to break them using human design, applied psychology, plus belief work to create sustainable plus scalable success. Join me in welcoming Adina to this amazing, full of knowledge and wisdom show where we talk all about human design. Let's get into it. Hi, Adina. Welcome to Journey Home to Self.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell the listeners a little bit about you. I think I did a great job introducing you since I know you so well. But tell my listeners where are you joining us from? What do you do? Tell us all about you.
I mean, how much time have you got?
You have time, girl.
I am Adina, as you've already mentioned. I am a business coach and human design coach, and I specifically work with using human design and doing belief work to help six-figure entrepreneurs scale a lot more sustainably.
I love that. And we've already mentioned that anyone who's listening, I'm going to say it again, go grab your human design chart. We're going to link the the place where you can get it for free so that you can follow along, or you can listen to the podcast, go grab the chart, and then listen to it again. Totally.
It's your choice.
Yeah, totally. Adina, I love having a conversation with you. Obviously, we talk a lot personally. But for the listeners and for people who do not know what human design is, how would you define it?
Whether or not that's the official description or not, but human design for me is a self-discovery tool. As far as the actual sort of drive it is concerned, human design consists of several different modalities, such as astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, quantum physics. And it's taking all of these things together. And I always feel that it's really important to also talk about what it doesn't do. So it's not here to sort of tell you who you're going to marry and what your future is, right? It's not the astrology magazine kind of thing that you see in, right? It's just like, when they share that, when they're just like, oh, today you will have luck or whatever. It's just like, that's not how this works. But what it does do, it is so far the only tool, and this is why it's a self-discovery tool, is the only tool that describes how you as an individual are energetically wired, so that you can start understanding, how do I make decisions? What does a correct decision feel like for me internally? So in human design, we have something called inner authority. And that is so far the only tool that really explains it in a way and gives you language of who you are as a person, because it really draws up this unique blueprint.
Yeah, beautifully described. I love that description. And I, as listeners would know, that I love self-discovery as opposed to self-improvement. And this is what this podcast is all about. And I've said this before, that if you don't know yourself, it's going to be very hard to journey home to yourself, right? Then you're just following everyone else's journey. You're like trying to find out a way to be like what other people expect you to be. And I think human design is a perfect, for me, it's almost like it's like Google Map to you, right? It's
Yeah.
sat nav, it's like GPS to come back home to yourself. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of human design, and I'm sure people grab your notepad and make some notes. This is going to be an amazing teaching episode. I'm sure Adina is going to drop some bombs. But before we even go there, Adina, share with us, what's your human design?
Haha, love it. I am a 5/1 emotional projector. So for anyone who does know a little bit about human design, I put the 5/1 in there because that's always really interesting. But yes, I am an emotional authority projector.
And for people who didn't know, I am a 3/5 emotional manifester. So we have a few things in common.
We do.
We do. What was your experience with human design like? How did you get into this? Because this is recent. Human design, we didn't grow up hearing about human design, even though it's been here for a while. How did you get into learning about human design and teaching human design?
It's in one of the programs, and you and I, we took this program together, and it was actually a really interesting story. So I took this program, and there are, like, I want to preface this, there are absolutely no ill feelings or whatever, but I took this program and it was quite a high investment for me at the time, and I was the perfect student. Like, I would do everything that was required. I was following my mentor at the time, and I would do whatever it is that they would say. And for me to increase my sales, that was ultimately what the program was about.
Right.
And sort of like a month before the end of the program, like, I have literally done everything down to a T, and I have sort of like squeezed a couple of sales in, but they felt really, really hard, and it felt really, really gross, but also it just wasn't to the level of what I was expecting or what I should be seeing, etc., etc. And so sort of like a month before the end of the program, I'm just like, this is just not working. And I asked my mentor about it. And they start saying to me, like, well, have you checked your human design? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And they were just like, well, go do the program. Fine, whatever, right? I'm like, okay. Or not the program, do the test, I think they called it. So I did a Google search, Googled the thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm a projector. I have no idea what that fucking means. And So I go back to them and I'm like, I'm a projector. And then they say, yeah, then none of this is going to work for you. So of course it's going to feel icky. And I'm like, and you telling me this now?
Ah, ah.
Right. At that point, and the reason I've done a lot of forgiveness work, I've done a lot of work on this myself, because I
Right.
think back in the days there was like they didn't know much
Yeah.
about it and they just
Yeah.
wanted to be honest.
Totally. That's what we've
Right.
been taught, right? This is the path, this is the framework, this is the step, go follow it. And everybody does that. And not just in business, in
Hmm.
everything,
Hmm.
right? In
And
everything, there is like a path to follow and everybody follows it. And what you're saying is that it doesn't work for everybody.
it doesn't work for everyone. And I mean, you and I, so we'll get to the types in a minute, I'm pretty sure, but the reason why they said, well, then it won't work for you is because we have something called an energy type and we have something called non-energy types. And the majority of the people in the world at the moment are what's called energy types. And for them, these frameworks, these traditional marketing techniques, for them, that works really, really well.
Right.
Right? Because they can put in that energy and they can post 3 times a day and they can be provocative and they can DM people, right? But for people who aren't traditionally considered energy types in human design, for them just it doesn't work, especially for projectors, because we're the
Right.
only type who require an external factor, an invitation in this case, to do something.
Right. Right. So essentially, what we are saying here is that we're all built differently.
Hmm.
And therefore, one size does not fit all. There
No.
is no cookie cutter way to run your business, live your life, even things like parenting or managing your health or relationships. Now, human design, most people think that, oh, it's just to run your business or to make money. No, it is for everything. So
Hmm.
let's get into the 5 types, because I think as we talk about it, it's going to make so much more sense to the listeners. So
Yes.
there are 5 types of human design. What are those?
So the 5 types that we have in human design are what we call a generator, a manifesting generator, a manifester, a projector, and a reflector.
Mhm.
And that is what you will find on your keynotes. So if you have your human design chart there for you already, you should see what type it is. You can completely ignore all the shapes and the lines and the numbers. You just need
And
to
the
look at the
boxes and the
keynote.
circles. Oh, they are
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you don't need to know any of these things. Just check the keynotes. It literally says type, authority, and whatever. Like it literally tells you. And what's really cool to understand about the types is it's almost like they are a role that you're playing in life, right? It's the tip of the iceberg. And so, excuse
Mm.
me, the generators, you make up around sort of like 35% of the world population, so a large majority of it. And you guys are really here to show us what true mastery looks like, right? You're really here to show us the mastery of what it is that really fulfills you and satisfies you,
Mm.
and show us what it looks like to really delight in that mastery. Um, and then we have the manifesting generators, who are a mix of manifestors and generators. And if you're a manifesting generator, you guys are very fast, right? Like you guys are so fast. You are often very much unfairly so labeled as fickle, especially in your youth, because you guys just want to go
Mhm.
from one project to the next. And you guys are really here to show us how to find shortcuts, right? And
Right.
show us that life isn't meant to be so linear,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that we don't just have to do one thing. You can do more than one thing, right?
Yeah. That's amazing. Let's go back to generators and manifesting generators, because I do want to go a little bit deeper for people to really understand what being a generator means for them. So you're
Hmm.
saying that if you're a generator, you're here to really fulfill that desire. Am I correct?
Yes. So every type has a signature, or what I like to call it. It's not traditional human design, but what I like to call it a way, a sign for them to find out whether or not they're on track in alignment with what it is.
Right, right. So, if you were taking the GPS analogy, it's going to tell you, are you on the right route? Are you on the right path? Or you're off the path? You're on a detour. And for
Hmm.
generators, it is what?
Satisfaction.
Okay, so they need to be satisfied in doing what they are doing. And from
Yeah.
what I know of generators are, they're really here to do the work that makes them truly, truly happy. and
Mhm.
their masters over time. Like some Oprah is a generator. And you can totally see she's the master of what she does, and she has achieved that mastery over time. And I think that the shadow of being a generator is that in the current world, we have been told to follow a path, and that path might not be something that you truly desire.
Well, that, and to add to what you just says, absolutely. And we're living in this kind of society where we're really just taught to trust that everyone else knows about ourselves better than we do, right? And so, like, it starts from like parent figures to teachers to governments to bosses, etc., right? It's just like, well, ask them for advice, we have authority figures. But what we've never really learned to do is to understand, how do I find personal fulfillment, right? Because the white picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 kids, house, and then dying is just not so, like, for me, that's how I always describe my life path. And just like, that just doesn't sound fulfilling to me, to go to school, go to university, go and find a guy, go and marry, have a husband, have 2 kids, and then die, to rinse and repeat the circle. Like, I know that sounds very dire and I'm making it sound very bleak, but to me, as an 18, 19-year-old who's fresh out of school, who's just like, I have no fucking clue what I wanted to do.
Right.
But that is what everyone told me I should be searching for. So then you have the types, a generator, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
right, who's really here to delight in their mastery. But
Right.
when you start understanding that that delight is what shows whether or not you're in alignment, right? That
Right.
satisfaction, because that is how you generate your energy as a generator, which is a bit more advanced human design. So we won't necessarily go into that. You can start to sort of understand how what you might be doing right now is probably causing you a lot of burnout and frustration, right? It's
Right.
probably
Right.
causing you a lot of unnecessary friction.
Right. And what I love about human design is that it clearly also tells you when you're off track. So for generators, there, and in human design lingo, it's called the not self theme. For generators, it is frustration, right? So
Mhm.
if you are a generator and you're feeling very frustrated, then you need to ask yourself question is that have you given yourself time to truly understand what is it that makes you happy? What are your true desires, and are you following that? Otherwise, it's always going to leave you frustrated. What are a couple of other things that if someone who's just listening and discovering human design and is a generator should watch out for or should start doing, Dina?
I'm always very careful when someone says should. I'm hoping that you enjoy. I'm not saying this to sort of
Right.
criticize at all. I'm just always very careful, because the whole point is that the system doesn't allow for shoulds. The system is just like what's
Hmm.
internal, and
I
so
love that. Yeah.
right. What you want to look out for if you are a generator, even a manifesting generator, is first of all, you are the guys who have the traditional gut feeling. That's like the first and foremost. Not everyone has that, right?
Mhm.
And the reason that I'm saying this is because you're really here to be, you're meant to be in flow. And very often what generators do, and this is what you really want to be looking out for, is when things get frustrating or when you stagnate a little bit as a generator, you tend to respond to that frustration with doing more, because you technically have the capacity to have a more or less infinite supply of energy because you generate your own, but that requires satisfaction. And so that can very often lead to burnout in a generator type. And so what you want to look out for is, am I potentially feeling resentful for the work that I once found incredibly satisfying and so delightful, right? Because that's an area where you can look at, especially if we're looking at business, it's very often where I find generators offering something that their peers are offering because they
Right.
think they should,
Hmm.
right? Like, oh, like what do we get from a lot of generators? Just like, oh, I think I should be doing a group program, but I don't actually want to. I want to continue one-on-one. They're just like, yeah, but everyone else does group programs. So I'm like, and then they start feeling resentful for the work because the group program might not be the thing that is correct for them.
Right.
Um, so that's one thing. So watch out for resentment and frustration.
Hmm.
Um, See if you can allow yourself to trust in your gut responses. So as as a generator, you'll have two types of responses. One's in your head and one's in your gut. And the one that's in your head, the logic, like the mind is very good at solving problems. What the mind is not very good at is making decisions that are actually correct for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's like one. And you'll notice that things tend to go a lot more smoothly when you actually follow that part of your intuition, which I know Deepshikha, you talk about this a lot, and that's really what I love about it. So human design just underlines that and basically just paints a little extra stroke underneath that, this intuition piece. Really look for what is it that would satisfy me in this particular outcome, what would really satisfy me, and then go and do and take these steps, right? Because it's really that excitement and that satisfaction. And it's not always 100% excitement, but sometimes it is just that satisfaction that really helps you fuel the internal fire.
Right, right. That's awesome. Oh my God, so good. Okay, let's talk about manifesting generators. So they are a little different from manifesting generators. Um, they also make up a lot of the population, if not most. Generators make up the most of the population. Tell us a little bit about what are manifesting generators, and what can people learn about themselves if they are an MG.
So manifesting generators, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think they make up around sort of 30% of the world population. Again, it's changing, always changing a little bit, but manifesting generators make up a really cool hybrid. And so you guys will find a lot of similarities between the generators and the manifestors. So always say, listen to both, because you can take something from both ends, because that's always really good. So like the generator, you share the knack for mastery, but your mastery lies in finding shortcuts, right? So you're really here to show us what is the fastest way to complete something so that you can go and pursue the next thing that really satisfies you and lights you up, right? And traditionally, the world doesn't like that. So a lot of manifesting generators have a lot of conditioning around, yeah, but I've always been told to finish one thing, right? Manifesting generators don't work very well with like your traditional signature programs, because they want to offer all of the things.
Right.
Right. So they want to have one program, and then a course here, and then they might want to have a charity here and save the dolphins here, right? And that's actually a correct thing for manifesting generators to do, rather than keeping them in a little box.
True. And they might have different hobbies that last maybe 10 minutes. Like my younger one is a manifesting generator, and right now he's into Diary of the Wimpy Kid, and that's what he does all day long. The moment he gets up, comes back from school, drops his backpack, and he's reading Diary of the Wimpy Kid. And I know it's going to last maybe a week or two, and then he'll move on to, let's say, Legos or cars or something else. So it's very interesting to see. And my husband is also a manifesting generator. It's very interesting to see as a parent of how, if you've given the manifesting generator the freedom to be, how they can just evolve into being these happy, beautiful people who have the freedom to do essentially anything that they want.
That is so cool. I didn't know that your kid and your husband were manjans.
Yeah,
That is so cool to know. How fun.
Yeah.
I'd be so interested to see how your boy is consuming the Diary of the Wimpy Kid. I bet he's probably reading so fast or skipping it, right? Because that's what manjans tend to do. It is really funny. Like the people, when I see manjan kids and they start reading, they become really good at fast reading. There's literally a technique.
I'm sure he does. Because he definitely goes through books pretty quickly. So I'm sure he's just skimming. Hey, Deepshikha here. I just wanted to take a quick break and thank you for tuning in. I love making this podcast for you, and I hope you love listening. If you do, the best way to show it is, yes, you guessed it, reviews. Reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, help the show's visibility and get it to more people. So if you're enjoying the show, let us know. Thanks again. All right, let's get back to the conversation. All right, so manifesting generators, to recap, are also here to become masters, but they are here to basically shortcut the masters. Well, I've also read somewhere that any shortcut that's ever been created in the world is by a manifesting generator. Is that true?
I don't know if it's true. I don't have the data, but
Right.
I would probably say like gut instinct. Yeah, it's very likely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what they're here to do, right?
Yeah. Who is a famous manifesting generator that you know of? Any
That's a good question.
celebrity?
Do you know what? I have a list of these people when I don't need it, and right now I'm like, man,
I think Angelina Jolie is a manifesting generator. If I am not wrong, do not quote me on this, but I think she is. She's a manifesting generator. So
she
yeah.
probably is. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Fun. Okay. So let's move on to manifestors, which are obviously my favorite.
Zero bias, of course.
Zero bias. No bias. Uh, what are these manifestors like?
Is it okay if I get you to tell your version first and then I will share it from my perspective? Because
Oh, of course.
I always love like the one thing that I don't like anything becoming is like a textbook thing, right? Because ultimately
Right.
it's always our human experience that still
Totally.
determines who we are.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear what's your experience as a manifester, and then I can share the general human design definition.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so when I discovered human design, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. And when I found out, about manifestors, my life just made so much more sense. I felt so understood and so heard, and I felt like, oh, finally, I'm home. That feeling of coming home was when I heard about manifestors, and this is what my life is like. I get these instant burst of creative urges. It's like an instant hit from the universe. And these creative urges are coming from somewhere inside of me, but also from source, from the universe. And I have to work on them. Now, that creative urge could be something related to my business, like starting this podcast has been a creative urge, or it could be something related to my life that I need to, clean my whole house, or take my kids this place, or book this vacation, or buy this thing, or go on a detox, or get a blood test done. So these creative urges are always pointing me in the right direction. Now, when I do not follow these creative urges, they usually remain. They usually will remain, but it can cause a lot of frustration and anger when I'm not allowed to follow these creative urges, because they're very spontaneous for me. They come at the worst time possible. Right? It's not even the time to book a trip, or it's not even the time to take the test, or start a podcast, but it'll come at that time, and it can cause a lot of anger, which is my not self theme. Now, my authority is emotional. So I also go through, highs and lows, and I have the solar plexus emotional authority, which means that my highs are really, really highs and my lows are really, really low. And usually, when I'm done with my creative urge, I need to rest a lot. So just like you, before this podcast started, you were mentioning about having very two busy days and you needing to nap. I have that often. And the biggest struggle for me when I started learning about human design was to allow myself the gift of resting, to allow myself the permission that I will not be productive 24 by 7. Right? Because we all come from a very 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, probably even Saturday and Sunday if you're a business owner, um, culture, and we are told that we need to work within the timelines, and my internal timeline doesn't work that way. Sometimes I'll get a creative hit at 2 a.m. in the night, and sometimes I wouldn't get it for weeks and weeks and weeks. So in a nutshell, that's what my life looks like. I need a lot of rest. When I get the creative urge, I can go really, really fast. um, and I have these highs and lows, and I have to initiate on these creative urges, because they're really, I think of them as the universe flowing through me. I call myself the vessel. Even this podcast for me is it's me being a conduit for the information, for the wisdom to go through to people. And when I have started looking at my life as that, it has become easier to release the resistance between my individual timeline of what I think my success should look like, of my life should look like, my day should look like, to, all right, we're doing this now, or we're just resting, we're just relaxing. Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. I love that. And I know that obviously I have a not intimate insight into your manifestness, but obviously I have we've talked about it at length, but I still gain more and more insight like whenever you talk about it, because it's so interesting to hear. So yes, I think like if we go with the traditional human design description of a manifesto, which is around 7 to 9% of the world population, so you guys are quite rare.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are really here to start people, like to initiate people and things, but not to finish them, right? So the person who created human design as a system was a manifester.
Mm-hmm.
So he was the one who had this creative urge, and he was just like, okay, and now, like you said, like the urge, you have to initiate on it. And this is pretty much how human design was born, which is really, really cool. And we look at our manifestors are very, very precious, because we really need to start understanding, like, you guys really suffer from traditional 9 to 5 work. You guys really, really suffer with the stigma that we currently have around working conditions, which is sit down, put your head down, and go and master the thing, right? Which is
Right.
what a generator would do. Whereas what you're really here to do is to be very, I sometimes imagine this, like in like the Greek, I don't know if I'm completely delusional right now if I say these things, but this is what I imagine, like the manifestors. You like in these, you have the Greek gardens, and the manifestors sit there being given like the grapes and the wine, and eventually they feel like they wanted to play the lute, and then they inspire other people. That's kind of like what I imagine sometimes manifestors doing.
I would take that life any single day.
But that's how it goes, right? They're just like, they're basically they're the muse. Honestly, if you need someone to initiate you and kick your butt into gears, like call your manifestor friend. Right? But also I think what you've mentioned earlier is something that's really important. If you're a manifestor, something to really look out for is, because your strategy is to inform and initiate, I think that is probably one of the most important bits for you as a manifestor, is to start understanding that there's gonna be friction, but asking for permission will just make you furious, right?
Right. And I think that's the go-to for a manifestor. Real quick, we haven't talked about strategy and authority so far. So a strategy is kind of like your go-to for being in this world for your human design. So we're going to quickly talk about strategy for manifestor, and then we can go back and talk about generator and manifesting generator as well. For manifestor is initiate plus inform. So initiate on the creative urges, but inform all the parties that are involved in the decision, or in what's happening. So for example, I'm just going to give an example here, Adina, so that people understand. And informing for manifestors is so hard. I can say this personally, and I'm sure manifestors listening will agree, because we've been, as children, we were never allowed to initiate. I mean, think about little 2-year, 3-year-olds wanting to initiate everybody into action, right? Wanting to lead people, lead their own families. So the instant reaction of a manifestor is to not inform, or seeking permission or approval, which also manifestors are chronic people pleasers. And that is, I think, the biggest work in the world right now, is to shed the people pleasing so that they can be their true selves. And a great example that I can share with you is that when me and my husband, we got married, I would make all these dinner plans with my friends and with his friends. And I hated friction. I knew that just internally and subconsciously, I hated informing. So I would tell him the day off, the dinner plan that we are going and we're going to have dinner. And my husband is a manifesting generator, and there was an instant friction. And even though it's not that he didn't want to go for dinner, or he hated the friends that we were going out for dinner, it was just an instant friction between them. And when I understood human design, I started informing him immediately. Like I would tell him that, hey, we're planning this, let's do this. And I could see how open he was. He would even suggest restaurants, he would even do the reservation. And the friction just disappeared just because I was able to be a better informer before I took an action. And I'm just giving you a personal example, but it works with me everywhere, whether it is with my kids or my work, my team, my audience. So for manifestors, it's you initiate something, but you also inform people because that reduces the friction. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So you inform the people who are impacted by your decision to follow your creative urge. Absolutely.
Right. What about for manifesting generators?
I'm gonna use your example because it glides really, really nicely into this, because what you have done, right? Because ideally, if every type followed their strategy and authority, we'd all work so beautifully together. What you have done is given your husband an opportunity to follow his strategy, which is
Mhm.
to wait to respond.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what he can then do, because you've informed him and you've given him a piece of information, he can use, and generators and manifesting generators, you share the same strategy to wait and respond. And then the manifesting generator can do the extra piece that a manifester can do a little bit of, then inform and then initiate once they have responded correctly. But wait
Right.
and respond is the thing. And so your husband could then respond with suggestions, things that he wanted to respond
Mm-hmm.
with, right? So I thought that that was just such a beautiful example that you gave there, because it really underlines how it all works. When we understand our own design, other
Yeah.
people can follow theirs.
Yeah, yeah, and I have seen that work so beautifully with both my kids as well, because one is a manifesting generator and the other is a generator. So just telling them dinner is ready, come to the table, is like calling for tantrums. So if I tell them, hey, we have a weekly menu plan and we take inputs from everybody, and we tell them that, okay, this is what we are doing, these are your choices, choose one. There's so like this, our meals go much better now since we started employing the strategy. And I didn't even think of it, but now that I'm thinking that, oh wow, this works really well for all our human design in the house.
Someone go make meals by human design, meals by design.
Meals
Meal planning by design.
right, right. Oh, I love this. All right, let's move on to our projectors. So tell us who you are.
Tell us who we are. Projectors, if you are one, you make up around 20%, 20 to 22% of the entire world population. You guys are the newest type of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the exact date, but I think it was like 1840s, but please don't quote me on that, when the projectors came into existence. I have never been good with dates like this. So again, I just know we're the newest type. Projectors, if you are one, you are here to be a natural leader and guide
Mm-hmm.
to everyone else, but especially the generators and the manifesting generators, to guide them into what it feels like and looks like to express their own version of success.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And you're obviously a projector. So tell us what does that look like for you?
So what that looks like for me, and that brings us a little bit into the strategy in the moment as well, is projectors work incredibly differently. So while generators and mangens have the wait to respond, right, which goes very, very quickly, manifestors have inform and initiate, projectors have wait for an invitation. But I think there has to be an extra piece, which is wait for recognition and then the invitation. I think that's something that was really important, because what that very often looks like for me is, a lot of the time, especially when I was a kid, I've been told to just go and do it, right? The manifest way, just go and do
Mm,
it. Just get like the Nike
right.
advert, just go and do
Get
it, right?
that.
We've all been told that.
Mm,
And I've always found myself to have a lot more friction than, for instance, my brother, who's a manifesting generator, or my peers, right? My mum is also a projector, also a 5-1 projector, but she has different she has a slightly different configuration. But obviously they didn't know that I had human design, and obviously it was very much like, go and make things happen, go and become the best, go and, but whenever I then had my own urge of wanting to guide and wanting to see people, because this is what we projectors do, we don't even need to know a person, and you just know exactly how can you guide their energy to their own individual success. That's just what we do. But if someone hasn't asked for that information, they can get really frustrated or really angry with you, or really disappointed that you do that. And so you have a lot of projectors who are just like, well, I'm just trying to help, and everyone else gets to give quote unquote feedback, right? Because this is what we've been told this is. Can I give you some some constructive feedback? But for some reason, for us, this doesn't work. Right. And so what projectors really need is to be recognized for their wisdom. Projectors are natural learners. So you will find a projector with their nose in their book pretty much all the time, or having a course or whatever, right? And recognizing your projectors and asking them for their input and asking them for their advice will instantly make them feel successful, even though it's not anyone else's job to make them feel successful. But if you have a projector in their life, honestly, ask them for their guidance, and you will see them light up. You will see them stand in their power. And if you are a projector, your not self theme or your lower expression is bitterness. Like, if you're a projector, you will know what that feels like.
Right. So if you're following someone else's strategy, let's say you're initiating all the time, you will feel bitter, right? If you're not waiting for that invitation to happen. So if I were to put that into a metaphor, let's say there's a party happening, a manifestor, essentially, that's how I am. I will go into a party and I can just go to people and introduce myself. However, if there's a projector, if he or she does that, they can feel a little bit unseen, right? Or even ignored. And this is a random example. So, but if I was with them and I say, hey, Adina, come on here, join my party, that would make them feel seen. But what about projectors who don't have people in life who are making them seen? What is the strategy for them? Because this is what I hear from my projector clients as well. And I have an answer for this, but I would love to know what you have to say about this. Not everybody is inviting you. In a true world, in an ideal world, if everybody's following our strategy, if I'm initiating, I'm going to give, a chance to MGs and generators to respond. I'm going to recognize projectors. With the response the generators and mangens do, they're going to invite projectors into their work. But we are not living in an idle world. So what can a projector do then?
I love that question. And that's really great. It's ultimately how I found human design, right? So if you understand, so first of all, what is an invitation? I think that's really important to understand. What actually is an invitation? An invitation doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be an envelope in front of your feet that says, please RSVP
right.
now.
This is not from Hogwarts. That's not the invitation we're looking for.
I'm still waiting for my bloody owl. But what an invitation essentially means is, really, does someone recognize your gifts and talents, and are they asking to be guided by you, right? And that can be in verbal form, ideally in verbal form, where someone's really asking like, hey, yeah, can I work with you? Can you tell me about this, etc., etc. But it can also be an energetic exchange where someone is just really intently listening to you, right? There are also ways where you can create a bit of an environment for invitation that I'll talk about in a second. But let's say, for instance, you don't necessarily have, like Deepshikha, you just said, you don't have necessarily anyone who's recognizing you, right? And you're in your phase where everything just feels really lonely and you feel really bitter. And honestly, I have been there before. I know what that's like. What you really are here to do is to understand your signature, and that is success, right? The sign for you to know when you're in alignment is whether you feel successful or not. And this is really hard for me to understand in the beginning, because I'm like, well, I hadn't had the money back in the days. I haven't had the people who ask me, right? But this is why marketing and sales work so much different for a projector, because there is no way around it. It has to start internally. Find ways for yourself to feel successful and recognize yourself, right? You really have to start determining this for yourself, and then share your wisdom without attachment, right? So that is one of the key pieces. Whereas in traditional marketing, we've learned, go and just share a couple of tips, be as provocative as possible, be as loud as you can possibly be,
Right.
and then engage with pretty much anyone who is so much as looking sideways at your content and send them a DM.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a general norm, but that is traditional marketing, how it is taught, right? And for a projector, that just doesn't work. For a projector, it is really when you're able to share from a place of complete detachment, knowing that you just delight and find absolute bliss in sharing what it is that you want to be sharing, it is absolutely inevitable for people to not notice you. And that is what your job is, what our job is to ultimately be doing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful explanation. How I tell my clients, and I absolutely love projectors. I feel manifestors and projectors work really well in a mentor mentee relationship as well. I've had a lot of projector clients, and I think the biggest work in my experience working with projectors is them finding their self worth and finding that sense of success that's not attached to an external validation, which is money, awards, recognition, followers, a big house, or whatever it is that the society says that success equals. Da 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 da. There has to be an internal definition of what success means to them. So that sense of worth is so important. And once you've found that, again, using a metaphor, I see projectors as a lighthouse. So a lighthouse on a beach does not go and shine a light individually to people. It doesn't say, hey, fishermen, come over here, my light is here. Hey, lost couple, get over here. Children, don't play in the water, it's night, look at the light. It just stands in its own worth. It just stands in its own brilliance and just keeps shining the light. And the light becomes stronger and stronger as the night becomes dark, and people are automatically attracted to it. So again, using a party metaphor, it's not the person who goes out to everybody and says, hey, I'm this and hey, I'm that, this is what I do. It's the person who is there in the party, but having their own, they're so happy with themselves. They're so blissful that everybody's looking at them and they're like, I want to join that party. I want to be a part of her party.
This literally, and I love the party metaphor because I use it myself as well, but this is literally how it happens for me when I am at parties.
Right.
If I introduce myself, I'm a bit unremarkable to them. It's true. It's almost they don't hear me, right? But if I'm just going in, I quickly say hi and I go by, but also I'm a fifth line, so I can be a bit of a mingler. But if I just go in and I just have my own fun, people will literally come up all of my business and they will start recognizing me. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so, if you're a projector and this is all is confusing, first of all, know that the invitation, waiting for invitation doesn't mean an actual invitation. It can also be an energetic invitation, but also the biggest work that I have seen work so well. And I've had clients who've gone from 0 to like 6 figures, and not that this matters, but they came to me for business success, and they found that success not because of the outside things that they were doing, but because they recognized their sense of self-worth. That's the only thing that we worked on. So I absolutely love projectors. I think I have a soft spot for projectors, not only because 2 of my best friends, including you, Adina, is a projector, but because I just feel that projectors can put themselves under so much pressure just because they don't see what we see in them.
Which, do you know what? I'm so glad that you brought this up, because that's actually something that I didn't even touch on just now. Is if you are a projector, something that you're very, very good at is seeing everyone else on an individual basis, right? But you're not here to know yourself. And what you've just touched on is exactly the problem that so many projectors face, is this whole thing of like, you can guide everyone else, but you're going to have a really fucking hard time guiding yourself, because you cannot see into yourself, as what we call the penetrating aura. You cannot penetrate your own aura. It's not possible.
Right. And also, if you are not a projector, and if you have a projector in your life, if it's your kids, your partner, your people who you work with, your clients, then make sure that you are recognizing them, make sure that you are inviting them, because otherwise it's any strategy that you apply with them is going to be bitter for them. It's going to make them bitter, so to say. All right, let's talk about the last one, reflectors, who I also really, really love. One of my another best friend is a reflector. So who are these special reflectors?
Special reflectors. So reflectors are truly, truly special, making up about 1% of the world population.
They're rare. They're
super
really
rare. Super rare. And reflectors are here to, as the name suggests, reflect back the health of the community back at us. Reflectors are incredibly wise, and I think it's really interesting, like if you are into astrology at all, is to really understand that reflector are the only lunar beings, and all of us rest, like projectors, manifestors, generators, and mangens, we're all solar beings. And reflectors have you'll know a reflector by seeing their chart, and all of their centers are white, all of the shapes are white. They just have some gates, defines what we call hanging gates, but they will have no complete channels. And
I'm going to just stop you there. Sorry, Adina. But what Adina means is, someone who's brand new to human design, if you're looking at your chart, some of us will have some areas colored, some of those boxes and squares colored. Reflectors, everything is empty. It's completely uncolored. White. Is that a word?
Uncolored. White. Uncolored. White.
It's white.
All the geometric shapes are white.
White. Yes. And so what does that mean for them?
What it means for them is, and it's good to know this for yourself, is where anywhere in your chart, for anyone, whether it is the lines or whether it is the geometric shapes, is where you take in external energy, whether it is through people or through the current planetary transits, and you amplify whatever that energy dictates. And so what reflectors do is they literally take in and amplify everything that each center and each sort of white gate, etc., then governs. And so what we're really having here is reflectors are so incredibly important, because when a reflector is happy and healthy, then we know that the community is happy and healthy, because they're literally reflecting everything around them and they're amplifying it, right? So reflectors need to be incredibly careful who they surround themselves with. They need to allow themselves to be incredibly fluid with who they allow themselves to be. They need a lot of alone time to rest and recharge. But also reflectors is really like, you guys have to be so selective who you allow into your space. That's so important. Like everyone else has to do the same thing, but reflectors more than anyone has to be so important. And partly also, I think sometimes I sometimes feel that in traditional human design, reflectors can sometimes be a bit presented as a bit of a wallflower, as a bit of like a very sensitive soul. Reflectors aren't actually that sensitive. You guys are incredibly strong. And you guys have a lot of resilience. It's just the world hasn't quite learned yet to honor that what your gifts are is total and utter honesty. Like if you ask a reflector what it is that you need to be doing to somehow improve your situation or yourself, like if you're prepared for the honesty and they will give it to you and you follow that advice, they will be right.
Yeah. No, I've had that experience. Like I said, one of my great friends is a reflector, and I totally see that, and she's the one that I go to if like I am in, like I don't know what to do, and give it to me straight. She's the one that I will go to, and she's right all the time. Sometimes I don't want to admit that she's right, but she is right. Yeah. And also like I have seen her evolve in her life as well. Of course, it's not my story to tell, but what I know of reflectors is that when they are in the right community, when they are among the right people, they are going to thrive. But if they are in toxic relationships or toxic communities, then you can see the weight of that on their shoulders.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I sometimes I sometimes find myself always wondering with reflectors is they need to have a really like easily uh, what would you call it, customizable living space, because something that I find a lot of the time with reflectors, right, is they need to be able to change their environment almost on a whim, right? So whether it's relationships, whether it's people, whether it's community, if they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna need my TV on the north side of the house right now instead of the west side of the house, if they allow themselves to follow that, it'll make them feel so much healthier. If they're just like, well, there's this party and I originally thought I'm going to go to that party, but now I'm
Right.
just like, I just don't feel like it. If they can give themselves the freedom to do that, they will be
Right.
so much happier and healthier.
Wow, that is such an interesting point. Yeah, that's awesome. And what I also know is that if you're a reflector and having some kind of a spiritual practice, whether it's yoga or meditation or breath work or whatever, it's just maybe being in nature. It's very, very important because you also need to kind of like empty out everything else so that you can listen to your own voice. You can listen to your own inner true voice because you're taking in everything in your energy and amplifying it. So if you're a reflector and you do not have that practice, my guess is that your inner voice has been calling you towards it, and this might be a good time to start. What is the strategy for a reflector since they are a lunar being?
Mm. So the strategy, and this always puts people off in the very beginning, but it's actually really, it's actually really, if you're a reflector, this will make sense to you. It's to wait up to a lunar cycle, which is around 28 days,
Mhm.
to make a decision. And I'm pretty sure Sandra Bullock is a reflector.
She is. She is a reflector. Hmm.
She is a reflector, and you can see her following her strategy really, really well, because within that 28 days, and usually this is what puts people off, because the moment they hear the word wait, they think it's passive,
Right.
right? Whether you're a generator and you hear wait to respond, you're just like, what, do I just sit here? No. If you're a projector and you're like, wait for an invitation, none of the waiting is passive. But for a
Yeah.
reflector, the waiting period is where you sample and where basically you sample different aspects of a decision that you want to make. So let's say,
Right.
for instance, you want to start a business, just in the context of business, because we can both kind of relate to this. Let's say, as a reflector, you want to start a business, right? Now you've started the cycle of decision making process. You would then, in an ideal world, allow yourself 28 days to come to a decision to that.
Hmm.
In that 28 days, you will speak to your confidants, right? Not to get their opinions necessarily, because you don't have an inner authority. You really need
Hmm.
to sample, right? You are here to taste and test and sample what potentially the different outcomes of that decision might be. And so you do this by speaking to trusted people, by gathering opinions, by sampling different environments where this might be true. And then by the end of that 28-day cycle, you will have a lot of clarity as to whether or not you want to go ahead with this.
Right. Right. Totally. And I love that because waiting for 28 days is not, we think in the current world that it's, oh my God, waiting for 28 days. But,
Mhm.
it, because we've been told to make decisions quickly and move forward quickly, but it's not that big of a deal. Communities used to work with the lunar cycle all the time. And I think what works also very well for reflectors um, is always trying to find out how they are, where their moods are, and how their energy is during the lunar cycle. So one of the assignments that I give my reflector clients is, take the first two, ideally three lunar cycles and chart it. Chart how you're feeling, journal about it at the end of every day. By the third lunar cycle, you will have a pattern. So if, for example, you do have to make a really quick, fast decision, then you don't have to wait 28 days, right? You can look at your patterns and somehow kind of come to a decision. But it's all about knowing yourself. So even with the lunar cycle, they have to wait because their energies can be so up and about and up, high and low.
Very
Um,
fluid.
very, very fluid. And
Mm.
that's why, but also, like, I would really like to put this caveat that it's so important also to have a good community around you, because you can chart your lunar cycle as much as you want to, but if you are in a toxic community, those decisions and your energy is going to be off the charts or somewhere else and not your true sense of self,
Mm.
if you are being affected by that toxic energy around you. So that's really, really important as well.
Yeah. It's so important, I think, if you are a reflector to really hear this, because a lot of reflectors, and I say a lot of, I don't actually know that many reflectors. I know one, but what I see online in the online reflector community is really they don't give themselves permission until they hear about their design to change their community, right?
Mhm.
But the moment they're by themselves, suddenly they feel better, and then they're just like, okay, well, maybe I am amplifying everyone else's shit, and that's exactly what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Uh, there was something that I was going to say about reflectors, and then I completely forgot. Maybe it'll come back. But you talked about something that's really cool, and that's like the world wants everyone to be spontaneous, right? The whole
Mhm.
waiting thing. But if we look at every type out there, not just reflectors, half of the population are emotionally defined. So you and I are an emotional authority.
Mhm.
If you have an emotional authority, you're not here to be spontaneous.
Right.
So
Totally.
half of the world population is not
Mhm.
actually here to make snap decisions.
And I don't think snap decisions are good for anybody, to be honest.
Some of
But
them, if you're a splenic authority, it can be good.
yeah, okay, all right, yes, do agree. But I think the narrative of making these spontaneous decision comes from patriarchy and capitalism. Because if you cannot click the buy button fast enough, then they're gonna lose. This is an entirely different episode, by the way.
Different can of worms, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, but if we, for example, like I have really embodied this waiting to respond to anyone. Like I don't have it right now, but just yesterday it's behind that chart with me. Guys can't see it, but I have charts all over my office. And it literally is a reminder for me to wait 24 hours, not just because it's good for my mental health, but it's my emotional authority. So yeah, Adina is right. If you're a splenic authority, that quick decision can be right, but sometimes it's also better to just wait and respond.
Yeah.
Um, oh my God, this is so amazing, so wonderful. I am sure that the listeners have gained so much wisdom out of it. Adina, if they want to know more about human design, and this is we just touched the tip of the iceberg. Human design, it's called a human design experiment because there's so much to learn, and it's an experiment. It is, trying to live your life with the way your design works, test it out, and if you like it, and you will, why not? Keep doing a little bit more of that. If they want to learn more, where can they find you?
Definitely on my website, which is adinakroll.com. I hang out a lot on Instagram where I have a lot of like tips and also things about human design where you can already start learning about these things. So it's just at Adina Kroll. And those are sort of like the two main places where you can definitely find me: Instagram and my website. I am also on Facebook, but Instagram, you'll get more glimpses of my daily life and more quick tips.
Yeah, and we are also on Instagram on Journey Home to Self. In fact, I would love for you guys to, if you like this episode, share it with your people, tag us, tag Adina, tag me, and also share with us, DM us, Adina at Adina Kroll, and we'll put her Instagram in the show notes and at Journey Home to Self, and tell us what your human design is and what is that one thing that was new, which was full of insights, which was like an aha for you for your human design. Adina, one last question for you, and I do want to talk to you about a beautiful guide that you have for our guests, for our listeners over here. Um, None of us are perfect, and I believe that the journey home to self is constantly evolving. We are always on it. There is no end to it, and the pleasure is being on the journey and not the destination. What journey are you on right now, and what's the lesson or challenge or gift that you're seeing in it?
I love that question, and I completely agree. I've recently, and that probably ties in with the answer to your question. I've recently gone on to this really transparent journey where I really share my own struggles with my clients and with my audience. Because as far as I'm concerned, if we have a teacher, a guide, or a mentor who presents themselves as, oh, I never have any problems, like run, just run.
That's also
And
the
so
five line in us, right? We want to share our mess as well.
yeah, we want to share the mess. And so for me, the journey that I am on right now is there is a limiting belief that I recently found in myself, and that is that I, typical projector fifth line thing, by the way, that I am responsible for other people's success and happiness. And that is what I am working on releasing, because the way that has shown itself in my work and in the way that I'm presenting myself is obviously I wasn't showing up as authentically as I could be, right? Because if I'm responsible for everyone else's success and happiness, the belief that's underneath that, then I will censor myself.
Right.
And I will probably beautify and what's the English word? Retuschieren. When you edit something, right, in a way where it's just not as it could be helpful in order to not piss people off, or in order to over deliver or whatever. So that is the journey that I am on at the moment, to make sure that I'm just stepping more and more into, like, walk my talk, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful to witness your journey, Adina. And I'm sure
Thank you.
that there will be challenges, but there will be beautiful lessons and wisdom that's going to come out of it. Tell us about this guide that you're sharing with our listeners today.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's really, it's if you run a business, because that's what like, my specialty is really sales and selling in a way that's actually authentic and not just pushy and icky. I have a free guide on my website where you can literally just sign up. That's called Sales by Design. And that goes through, again, just a very vastly oversimplified version of how you can use your type already and your authority to sell better and to market yourself better, so that you already have a starting point.
That's amazing. So, for all the business owners out there, for all the aspiring business owners, and even if you are not a business owner, you were always selling something, ideas, meals to our kids. Um,
Someone please, after this episode, create like meal
Meals
prepping by
by
design.
design. Totally, totally. Go grab that guide. We're going to link it in the show notes. Thank you so much, Adina, for coming here, for guiding us, and for sharing your wisdom. It was wonderful having you.
Thank you so much. I feel so seen. Thank you for having me. It's always wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Journey Home to Self. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. And of course, your 5-star reviews are always appreciated. Thanks again, and see you next week.